Have you been considering adding PR to your channel mix? Or perhaps you're dabbling in PR, but you would like to lean in more heavily? Or maybe you're not sure if your PR activities are being effective. Well, in either of those three scenarios, you will benefit from a new book that's just come out called B2B PR That Gets Results. And today I'm pleased to bring on the author of that book to share her wisdom of how to do PR better when it comes to both trade publications and business publications for B2B companies. Let's do this.
Welcome to Content Marketing Engineered, your source for building trust and generating demand with technical content. Here is your host, Wendy Covey.
Hi, and welcome to Content Marketing Engineered. On each episode, I'll break down an industry trend, challenge, or best practice in reaching technical audiences. You'll meet colleagues, friends, and clients of mine who will stop by to share their stories. And I hope that you leave each episode feeling inspired and ready to take action. Before we jump in, I'd like to give a brief shout out to my agency, True Marketing. True is a full-service agency located in beautiful Austin, Texas, serving highly technical companies. For more information, visit truemarketing.com. And now, on with our podcast. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Content Marketing Engineered. I'm joined today by Michelle Garrett. She is the author of a brand new book called B2B PR That Gets Results, a guide to simple and targeted public relations practices. So thrilled to have you on the show, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me, Wendy. I'm excited to be here.
And how long has the book been out? What was the release date? I know you know this by heart.
Yes, April 18th.
It's awesome. And I understand that it debuted #1 on the Amazon bestseller for PR books. So that's a pretty cool distinction.
Yes, I know. I was really excited, and I I heard a lot about the bestseller lists and all of that, but I had no idea if that would happen. So I was really appreciative of all the support from people that have been following me and watching for the book. So that was great.
And your baby is born. It's here. Well, what I would like to do today, I want to learn more about your book, of course, and then leave people with some practical tips for B2B PR, because I know we get a lot of questions about this. So it's wonderful timing to have you on. You know, people who are winding down from their spring trade shows, already thinking about fall, and PR, of course, often goes hand in hand with those events specifically. And then, of course, separately is its own integrated tactic with campaigns. So before we get into all that, though, I'd love to just hear, what was the catalyst? What inspired you to write a book?
Well, so for years, I have been writing about public relations, communications, marketing, social media for my own blog, for other publications, and I just felt like it was time. Some people would say, why don't you write a book? And so I thought, you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe I should write a book. So I just embarked on that task. And as you know, having written a book yourself, it's not a, it's a big project. So it takes a while.
It does, longer than you expect it to take, for sure. So yes. Why PR? Why B2B PR?
hmm Well, I think, yes, there are a lot of things I could have written about. I've been working for myself for a long time, so I thought about writing a book about freelancing, for example. But I think my work in PR and communications is probably what I am best known for. And then B2B, I have leaned into that part of my own practice. Pretty hard the last few years because I feel like there's just so much we can do for B2B companies in that space. I feel like a lot of, for example, manufacturing companies, industrial companies haven't necessarily done a lot of PR. Some of my clients are 50 years old, 75 years old, and they may never have really done a whole lot of PR, and they're kind of a well-kept secret. And they have so many stories they can tell, and maybe they just don't see that because they're too close to it and they think nothing they do is interesting, but they in fact have a lot of really interesting stories to tell and customer stories and things to get out there. So
So do you think that hesitancy has to do with not understanding that they have a story to tell, or do you think some of it's budgetary, or just maybe not even understanding PR?
I think it's the last one there, that maybe they don't understand what PR is and how it works. And I think especially in B2B, and again, I'm going to say in manufacturing, a lot of that has been kind of reliant on the old school ways, the network and that kind of thing. And I think now the buyers are younger and they're looking online. They're looking at the company's content. They're Googling, looking to see what news stories may have been written about the company, what trade publications they've been featured in, to help them make those choices before they ever even get in touch with the company regarding a buying decision. So I'm hoping and thinking and feeling like the tide is kind of shifting for some of those companies, and they're understanding that they do, in fact, need PR in addition to whatever they might be doing on the marketing side already.
So, Michelle, what are some misconceptions that B2B marketers have about PR or perhaps even company leaders?
I think they get confused about what PR is, because I think a lot of times when I've talked with a prospective client, they equate PR with advertising, and it's really not the same thing. Because I always think about the peso model, the paid, earned, shared, and owned model by Jenny Dietrich of Spin Sucks. I don't know if people are familiar with that. Advertising falls under paid media, and PR really falls in the earned media category. And then, of course, a really big part of this is your own media, which is your content. And then, of course, your social media, which falls under shared media. So it all really works together. But if you are paying to do ads or sponsored content, earned media, PR is different from that, because it's really pitching a story and getting a publication or an editor to write about your company, which brings with it a lot of credibility. And then you can plug that in to your social media, for example. And if you want to pay to boost that, you could. And you can even pitch your owned content as earn media in some cases, depending on what it is and what publication you might be pitching. So that's one thing I think that is sometimes confusing or misunderstood about PR.
The idea of that advertorial, remember that word's hard to say. Do you feel like technical buyers especially are kind of onto that compared to contributed or just legit, stories written by editors that
I
include
don't
your
know,
brand?
because sometimes I wonder if they're paying attention to the fact that it's sponsored or that is an advertorial. Sometimes people aren't noticing that. I
Uh-huh.
hope that they will look for that and, keep an eye out. It's not to say that information there isn't credible. I just think that sometimes, of course, if a company is paying for the, the space in the publication, be it digital or print, they are probably going to speak very favorably about themselves versus an editor, which might take a little bit more of a subjective view and look at other companies in the same article, or quote a few different brands in the same piece or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Okay. Well, what do you say to someone who's like, Michelle, like PR doesn't work. It's a waste of time. It takes so much effort.
Yeah.
What do you say to those naysayers?
Well, I think sometimes people may have had a bad experience
Mhm.
with a particular, PR provider, an agency or consultant or whoever they might be working with. And I don't think sometimes they give it enough time either. I would always, sometimes when I speak, I'm asked the question, how long does it take? So I usually say, and it's different in every case. And of course, there's never a guarantee when it's earned media, right? It's not like a paid ad that's going to show up this day and it's going to be this big and it's going to say these things. We don't know when we pitch an earned media story, exactly what the story is going to say or when it's going to show up. However, I think that there is a place for that in their program as well as the paid side, and so I think that that's something to keep in mind. If you can do both, paid and earned, I think that's even better. So
Yeah. I also think that some opinions were shaped from people who've been around a certain number of decades. Their opinions may be shaped by the print media model where there was not infinite real estate the way it is on websites. And I had a publisher on the show not long ago that talked about the pressure that they're under to have
Mhm.
fresh content every day. And
Mhm.
so they have more bandwidth to publish articles. And of course, they want to vet that for quality and make sure it fits in with whatever editorial process that they have going on. But I think that also that's kind of an interesting contrast to the old ways.
Yeah, well, things have certainly changed and they continue to evolve. And I know with trade publications, which is where a lot of companies should be looking for coverage, but sometimes they overlook that in favor of, they want to be in a bigger publication, a mainstream publication, for example. I think the trades are hungry for content. And so they need to fill their pages, again, digitally or print. Sometimes you get them both if you're lucky. Their staffs are shrinking. They need content, and to your point, they're refreshing content. They're putting fresh content up every day, so they really do need stories. They're looking for good stories, and if you can be there with what they need, and I would say visuals play a big part in this as well. If you have great photos and video and things to accompany your stories, your pitches, your press releases, however you're, putting that together to pitch to a publication, to an editor, that's going to put them in a really good position to earn some media coverage.
Yeah, very much so. Okay, so I know you and I come from a similar philosophy when it comes to marketing strategy of having an integrated strategy, not looking first to channel specific tactics, but really integrating things together. So tell me about how you ensure that PR is integrating into, say, content marketing and social media and on all the other things that companies are doing.
Yeah, that's a great question because I really do see social content, PR all kind of working together. And I think that, having the content is kind of the foundation. So if you have great content on your site, you can use some of that and plug it into your earned media, your PR efforts. And then again, the social media comes into play as well with both the content and the earned media, the PR. And I think it's great when those teams can work together and collaborate versus being siloed off, because I just think they can get so much more out of each other's effort when they play off each other and work together and collaborate. Because sometimes the PR team can look at a piece of content and say, wow, this would be a great fit for this trade publication, for example. And then the social media team would be like, well, we have these visuals that can go along and we can, do some kind of a coordinated campaign, for example. And so, you publish it first on your site, then you pitch it as an earned media, as a PR, placement. And then once it shows up, you can share it on social media. And again, if you want to bring in paid and boost it, you could do that too. So it all really does work great together. And I know not every company can do that, but as much as you can, or even if you can just kind of test it out and try it out a little bit, I think you'll see that you'll get some great results and you'll want to do more of it.
Yeah. How do you think PR affects a company's brand? I mean, how much of a boost do you feel it brings when a brand is published in whether it be a trade publication or a business journal?
I think it can bring a lot of kind of oomph to the brand. And I think the thing I would say about this is once the story appears, make sure people know about it, get it out there, have your folks share it, your employees, if you feel comfortable doing that. I mean, it's up to them if they want to post it on social media, but you can make it easier for them by sharing a link and maybe even suggesting some wording to go along with the post on LinkedIn, for example, which would be the number one, channel, I think, for B2B companies. The best social media platform would be LinkedIn. And just make sure everybody knows about it. Post it on your site, put it in your newsletter, share it with your sales team. Just make sure people know, because I think one thing that happens is, oh gosh, we worked really hard to get the story out there. It appeared, and then like, okay, then it's just, that's it, and I think you can help it have more of a life and have more of an impact on your business by making it available and letting people know that it's out there.
Great. Yeah. And thank you for the specific tactics. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what about the marketer that's listening and says, Michelle, this all sounds great, but I think my business is just too small for PR. No one's going to want to hear what we have to say. True or false?
I think it's false. I will say, I mean, I think it helps to talk to somebody who can help you figure out if you have a story and what the stories are, because I think there are situations with clients sometimes where they will come to me and say, "Oh, we have this great idea for that would make a great story for you to pitch to a trade publication, for example." And then we kind of talk through it and look at it, and maybe not all the elements are there. Maybe it is a better fit for the company's blog. But I do think in most cases they have something that would be of interest to a trade publication, for example. And really, when I wrote the book, I was thinking about the one person marketing team, the
Mm,
smaller businesses, the companies 500 employees and less, the ones that can't afford a big, a really big agency or an in-house PR person or whatever it might be, because those companies do have stories to tell, and I think they just maybe need a little bit of help to understand what the stories are, how to get them out there, and the components that are involved. So
okay. What is a typical time frame from the start of the PR strategy for that particular push to seeing results?
that's a great question that comes up sometimes. So, I mean, it's hard to say, but I always say 3 to 6 months if you're starting to work with a new PR provider, to give them the time to get ramped up and get some momentum going. I think, the first month is always kind of getting up to speed and making sure that everything's in place, and then you can start pitching and hopefully seeing some results. There's a long lead time with some publications,
Yeah.
sometimes their lead time can be months. So if you go into it thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna see results overnight," you might be disappointed, so the expectation setting is really important. And then I think you have to think about what you're bringing to the table, because some companies, um, aren't as ready as other companies. So when I do talk to a company that's been around for 50 years, it's very likely they're going to have some thought leaders within the company that can help us with those kinds of pieces. They can talk about trends that they see besides just having new products and solutions, which everybody wants to, issue press releases about. And I still think that's absolutely fine and should be part of the program. Just, but not the only part, and
No,
so,
no.
because if you do that, you're only gonna have, an update every so often versus
Mhm.
trying to keep things kinda going on a continuous basis.
Yeah, fair. And I would think that that's a best practice that you would advocate is having things, a drumbeat of activity, not just, oh, we have this one article and we had some good
Mhm.
views and impressions or whatever, and now it's over. But to instead have
Yeah.
a multitude of things over time.
Yeah, one of my CEOs said, when he goes to a trade show, for example, that's his colleagues will say, "We've been seeing you everywhere." And I'm like, "That's the goal, that means it's working, right?" Because we're not just a one-trick pony, we're not a one-story operation here. We're actually trying to come up with content that's going to be relevant and get it in a number of places in front of the prospects
Yeah.
and customers so that they can see, wow, this company is doing things and they have something going on. They have some momentum going.
Yeah, yeah. And they have an opinion on application X or, trend Y.
Mhm,
And, there's multiple stories to tell around those themes. And so
mhm,
the more you can be known for that, like you said, in different places, as well as consistently on this one theme, the
mhm.
better you'll do across, all the channels. Okay. So tell me about measurement. Marketers, we love to look at those numbers. How do you measure PR?
Well, I will say I'm not the biggest tool person always. Like, I kind of wait always to see. I try to avoid this shiny object syndrome, the I'm going to jump on this bandwagon immediately. But there is a tool that I like that clients really love too. It's called Coverage Book. And it's a very easy to use tool. You can take the links from your coverage, put them into Coverage Book, and it will create a beautiful layout of all your coverage, and it also has some measurement in there that tells you how many people saw the story. And then if you can have a unique URL, for example, you can see how many people visited that URL, clicked on that story. Those are the kinds of things that I think can help you measure. But I will say that PR kind of ladders up. So it's part of your larger marketing effort. And sometimes I think it's hard for PR people to measure what they're doing, to measure the value of their work, the ROI on what they're doing, because it is having an impact, because there's a buzz out there. And it may just be, oh, well, the customer heard about us, in 5 different places, and 3 of them were trade journals, or, whatever. We got an email, we saw a story in a trade journal, we saw them on social media. And so it's kind of all, to measure it in a vacuum by itself can sometimes be difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. So still placements, impressions, maybe traffic through if a link's even provided. But of course, a lot of these
Right.
publications want to keep you on their site. So it really
Right.
is more about placements and then traffic that comes through that site, unfortunately,
Yeah.
than those direct names. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, AI, I have to ask everybody about AI. Are there ways to use AI responsibly when working on PR campaigns?
Well, I'm not a huge AI person. I'll just be very upfront about it.
All right.
I didn't use AI to write my book, so and I'm pretty vocal about my feelings about it. And I was just talking to somebody about this, how writing is kind of more important than ever, doing your own writing, because it really helps you stand out from the crowd. If people
Yeah.
are using AI, it kind of all sounds the same, or it's just not very compelling. It sounds like a robot wrote it a lot of times. So I
Yeah.
think the writing matters kind of more than ever on the content side. And then, a lot of PR people do writing as well. So I think that's just a really important thing if you're evaluating a provider, to look at, the quality of what they're producing, look at some examples of their work, make sure that you're seeing. In fact, I have a client who has they work with me, but they also have like an agency on the digital marketing side that they work with. And they said that the writing that they see is very different from me versus the agency. So sometimes I think, you can have one person do all your writing, but I just think you want to use care with the AI tools. I
Yes.
do use tools that have AI in them, like, Gmail has an AI component, Grammarly has an AI component.
Grammarly.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are tools with AI, and I'm not going to say that, you should never use a tool with AI in it, but I don't think you should be relying on it to do all of your writing, for example.
Yes. Okay. High five. High five into the camera for that. Well, any parting words of advice for marketers listening?
I think that PR can be something that's misunderstood, but I do think it's worth at least checking into to see if it would be a worthwhile thing to add to your marketing program if you're not currently doing any, because there are just so many ways you can use it and plug it in to what you're already doing, and it can really supplement and help you improve the reputation of your brand, protect the reputation of your brand, and share all of the really cool things that you're doing at your company.
Great. Great advice, Michelle. And where can people connect with you and find the book?
MichelleGarrett.com is my website. The book is available on Amazon, of course. It's available on Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org. It comes in both a Kindle and a paperback version. And I would just be more than happy to answer any questions ever that anyone might have about how PR might help them.
Great. And again, the book name is B2B PR That Gets Results. And I'll put a link to all of those things that you mentioned in the show notes. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Wendy.
Thanks for joining me today on Content Marketing Engineered. For show notes, including links to resources, visit truemarketing.com/podcast. While there, you can subscribe to our blog and our newsletter and order a copy of my book, Content Marketing Engineered. Also, I would love your reviews on this podcast. So please, when you get a chance, subscribe and leave me your review on your favorite podcast subscription platform. Thanks and have a great day.